Diphthongs. What are diphthongs? Or some people say diphthongs. Diphthongs, I'll look at a definition here. Diphthongs are vowels that exhibit a change in quality within a single syllable. So normally a vowel has one type of sound throughout the whole vowel. A diphthong is one that changes in the middle, within one syllable. Let's look at some English examples. And all of this definition, and these examples in English come from O'Grady and Dobrovolsky's textbook, Contemporary Linguistic Analysis. I have where's my cursor? Right down here. So, say. Here's an English example. The word say. You hear how the vowel say, a, it's one syllable, say, but the vowel changes as you move through it. A, okay? Or by, or boy. I'm exaggerating a little bit, say, by, and boy, but there is a difference there. A, I, oi. There's a change as you move through. And it was interesting when I looked at this in English, because, well, I'll show you in a second here. These diphthongs are formed by taking a vowel and adding yud to it. I mean y. See, you got a y here. A, I, oi. Interesting. Okay, cow. What about cow? There's another diphthong. So you have ow change, and that is a vowel with a W attached to it. And you have grow, O, another one with a W attached to it. So you have I, oi, ow, O. Now these aren't the only diphthongs. Some diphthongs in English, just to throw this in here, don't need to have two letters. Single letter, but still diphthong. So like ice, ice, and there are others. But these ones here in particularly here interested me. And if you remember your ABCs when they told you first your alphabet in grade school, and then they told you what the vowels were, they often said the vowels in English are A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. It always frustrated me because I never said why Y is a vowel, or a vowel sometimes, but maybe this is part of it. Here, it is functioning somewhat like a vowel. It is together with a vowel forming a diphthong, and here W is doing the same thing. Now, in Hebrew, we have two diphthongs, and interestingly enough, the diphthongs are, if you didn't already catch my big hints as I went along here, are I, patach with a yud, sounds something like this here, as in by, and av. Now, here, this is probably, now this is the case where it really does make more sense to use the historically correct pronunciation for the vav. Instead of saying v, as in modern Hebrew, like a v, you say w, so ow, something like cow. You can see how w has a more vocalic, is more vocalic than v. W and v are obviously related. If you listen to Germans who speak English as a second language, they'll often get them mixed up. That's because they are related. But a w is more vocalic than a v. Anyway, what I found interesting here was that at least some English diphthongs are formed by adding a y, and in Hebrew, one of our diphthongs is formed with adding a y, which corresponds to the y, and the other ones, or some other ones in English, are formed with a w, and we have that in Hebrew too. So, interesting. There are definitely similarities between languages. Okay, so these are our two diphthongs. Let's look at some examples. Let's look at the word buy it. What is it here? Ba, oh, of course, it's our diphthong. Buy it. Okay, there is a word, means house. Stress is here actually, buy it. And our diphthong is here, patach yud. That's our first diphthong. Remember? That's this one here. And our other word, another word that shows the other one, tavech. both begad gefat letters, so they have their dagashlene. Ta, ta vech. Now I suppose I should pronounce this the old way, meaning the historically correct way. Ta wech. So this is the diphthong here. The kametz and the vav, or the waw, and the diphthong here is the patach and the yud. Now what happens is that these can contract. Our diphthongs can contract. And when they contract, let's see if I can squeeze all this in here. The I, make it a little smaller, becomes a. Okay? Here it's really a consonant. The yud in the diphthong is a consonant. Here it is no longer a consonant. This is a full mater. This is the vowel. So a. So you have a tzere yud. Something like a hidik yud, but this is a tzere yud. An example of this is bait. Under certain circumstances, bayit can become bait. Now what about this thing here? This, let me get a different color here. This is a helping vowel, an animatedhebrew vowel, I believe they call it, and it is here to separate these two consonants. This consonant doesn't have a vowel after it, so if you didn't have this, it would be bite or something. So this is here because there's a consonant. When this becomes a vowel, when this diphthong here contracts to this vowel, then you don't need this anymore, and so it drops out. So you could think about the diphthong contracting to this and then the helping vowel dropping out. That's probably the best way. Some people will actually put the helping vowel here and say this whole thing contracts to this. Just a matter of how you want to look at it. This is probably more accurate to say that the diphthong contracts and the helping vowel is no longer needed, and so it drops out. Okay, so this diphthong goes to this diphthong, which is that, goes to O. And toch. There are certain circumstances where tavech will become toch. Now, if you didn't know about diphthongs, this would look very different than this. How in the world does tavech become toch? So it's important to be aware of this, to be aware of what the diphthongs are and what they change to, so that you can still recognize the word. Okay, let us look at some examples. Now, did I write this down? I think I pre-wrote this here. Okay. Ayil. Here's an example of the first diphthong. What color do I still have here? Okay. Ayil means ram. Here we have the first diphthong, the patach yud. And if we add a plural ending to it, it becomes elim. Ayil becomes elim. Now, what's going on here? When you add an ending, a suffix ending, in this case a plural ending, then the stress moves over here. Notice ayil has the stress here, and both bayit and tavech, the two we looked at earlier, or that we just looked at, they also had the stress at the beginning. And when you add an ending, the stress moves and the diphthong contracts. The general rule is that the diphthong is present if it's stressed, if it's in a stressed syllable. And it disappears, it contracts into its appropriate form if the stress is lost. Now frequently the stress is lost when you add a suffix like a plural ending. Or here's another suffix, this elo. O here means his, it's the possessive suffix. So this is rams, plural, this is his ram. And it also has contracted because the suffix has moved the stress away from where the diphthong was, and so the diphthong contracts. So here's an example with ayil, meaning ram. Ayin, this means I. Again, the same diphthong. Here we add a suffix. We get einayim. Now what suffix is this? Is this the plural suffix? No, it's not. This is the dual, remember? The plural would be im. You'd have a yud, have a hidik here, the yud, and then just the mem, im. But because ayin is a body part of which we have two, it tends to be used in the dual, so enayim. But again, a suffix changes the stress, you get reduction. Actually, not reduction, let's call it contraction. Diphthong contracts. Eno, again, we add him or his I. We add a suffix his and same thing. Bayit, let's just look at bayit again. Oh, I should. Did I put this here? Ayin. These are all stressed in the first syllable, which is why the diphthong is there. So bayit, beito, we add a suffix. I should put that back on. And again, it reduces. Beito. Or it contracts, I should say. Now, bait by itself, which is the example I gave before, it is something called the contract form. We will come to it later, but basically it is associated with the next word, often with a, or sometimes with a McCabe, sometimes without. So stress is moving away, and that's why you're getting this this contraction here. Now let's look at a couple examples of the other one, the one with the vav, the w sound. So tavech, the word we had before. If we add e at the end, e means my, o means his, e means my, possessive suffix, becomes tochi. Tavech becomes tochi. Again, if you didn't know about diphthongs and their contractions, these two would not look very similar. And I think this is my last one. Mavet. Mavet means death. But you almost always see it in a different form. You almost always see motim if it's in the plural. So here I added a suffix. The av became o, or moti. Sometimes you see mot just by itself. And so here e again is the first common singular suffix, my death. Okay, I think that was it. Yeah, it for diphthongs. So, diphthongs, we have two. One is with the yud, one is with the vav. They have helping vowels. Let me put that in a different color. They have helping vowels, typically these, I think. Maybe always those. When helping vowels with the diphthong, but they contract to that, instead of yud, and to o. Diphthongs in Hebrew.